lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
And I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing Firestarter, which was released today, April 13th, Friday the 13th, in theaters and streaming on Peacock. Rowan, from some of our other episodes, I've sussed out that we're all pretty big fans of Stephen King around these parts, but were you looking forward to this remake or reimagining of Firestarter? And have you happened to see the original movie or read the book?
So, I own the book. I've never read the book.
Okay.
But I do know, like, anyone I know that's a big Stephen King fan tends to really like this book. I think this is pretty popular in his repertoire. Now, The movie. So I own the original movie. Scream Factory put out a gorgeous edition of it. But I have not seen the original since I was a kid. And I purposefully didn't rewatch the original going into this because I just kind of wanted, like, I don't remember anything about the original other than Drew Barrymore. And, like, I think I've seen a trailer for it recently, like the old one.
Okay.
But I just wanted to come in this with like a fresh pair of eyes, like no judgment. What about you? What was your like kind of experiences with Firestarter?
Yeah, I haven't read the book either. I've dabbled in a bunch of different like Stephen King books, but I think the only one I've actually finished to completion is The Shining.
Okay. Yeah.
I've read, some of his short story collections, read about half of it. I've read some Dr. Sleep, read some of his older stuff too, like Carrie a little bit. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with Firestarter. And going into this movie, I think I saw just the poster, and where it said it was releasing on streaming to Peacock, I think at the time I didn't even think it was releasing in theaters at all. So I wasn't like super excited for this one, but I did know of the original with Drew Barrymore and whatnot. I haven't seen it. I don't even think I saw it when I was a kid. So yeah, overall, my expectations were pretty low for this one. And then when I saw that essentially they didn't allow any critics or they did no screenings until the movie was actually out in theaters on Thursday night, that didn't bode well for it either. But yeah, I mean, pretty low expectations over here. But you really wanted to see it, and I think you even went to the theaters last night to see it, which I just watched it in the comfort of my own home. So yeah, we're a little bit different on that, I think.
Yeah, and I was going to say it was a common Now Slaying theme. Went to the theater, me and 3 other people attended it. I went to like the late showing of it at about 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
I had looked, the 7 o'clock showing, I don't think they sold a single seat for the 7 o'clock one. And yeah, it was... I was going to say it was really funny because it was me. It was like a couple that I don't think were any older than like 19. They had like university sweaters on. So
yeah.
I thought maybe, like some Stephen King fans or something.
Yeah.
And then it was like an older guy with this weird advertisement shirt for like being a psychic on.
Ooh, all right.
Interesting fellow. He just he was like sitting there. He had Bluetooth headphones on, like
the entire movie. He just
no,
kept them
like
on,
the entire like trailers and ads and stuff.
Okay,
but I've never seen someone like through the trailers like he had his headphones on, and he also somehow crammed 3 cans of bubbly into his pants pocket, which he had to stand up and pull them all out. It was super impressive.
That is impressive. I mean, he is a psychic and all. He's probably seen the trailers before, either in his mind's eye or maybe he just goes to the theaters pretty often. But no, that is impressive. I mean, that's far more interesting than just me sitting on my couch and basically being like, all right, let's, cram this bad boy in before 3 o'clock this afternoon. But yeah, I guess we'll kind of just throw it over to the trailer and then we'll return with, our discussion on Firestarter. So let's do that.
Honey, it happened again.
Weirdo.
I wish I was normal.
You're strong, Charlie. You're gonna change the world.
The girl's power is growing.
She's a real superhero.
I'm a monster!
You have to learn how to control your power.
I can help you.
Liar, liar. Pants on fire.
Rated R.
What you just heard is from Firestarter, directed by Scott Thomas and written by Scott Teems, and the story is as follows. A girl with extraordinary pyrokinetic powers fights to protect her family and herself from a shadowy federal agency that seeks to capture and control her. Now, Rowan, here on Now Slang, we usually try and keep things pretty spoiler-free up front, but with this one, I don't really know if it's quite as important. I mean, there's the novel, there's the other film adaptation. It's not really the sort of movie you can spoil. I feel like if you've seen the poster, if you've seen the trailer, you've kind of seen a lot of what, the reveals of this movie. I mean, the name is a spoiler, for God's sake. Yeah. So maybe instead of doing our usual, 5 to 10 minutes of spoiler-free discussion, maybe just give the folks what they want to hear. Would you recommend this movie? Would you not recommend it? And then we'll just, we'll open up the floodgates. We'll get into the full spoiler discussion momentarily here.
Yeah, I think I'd recommend it. I'd only recommend it if you're gonna go see it in the theater or at home, you have to put on Prodigy first and listen to Firestarter the song, which I made sure to do while I drove to the theater and really get into the vibe. But yeah, I'm gonna give this a surprising recommend. I didn't expect to recommend it. Yeah, I thought it was fun. Like I think it's fun. We'll go into further detail of why, but I think for just like a fun night out, this is I think it's worth it's not very long. It's an hour and a half. I think it's worth your hour and a half. What about you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit less positive on it than you are. I don't think I'd recommend it other than, the people that are going to go see this anyways. If you're a diehard Stephen King fan, if you go see every horror movie in theaters anyways, I mean, you've probably already seen this and, you're happy listening through the spoiler-free or the spoiler discussion. It's the type of movie where it's not like absolute garbage or anything. I think it's a little bit boring. There are some redeeming qualities. There's aspects I wish the plot or the story went in different directions. But I mean, I don't know if it's a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is what it's sitting at right now, or on Letterboxd, it only has a 2.2. So, I mean, people are dogpiling on this one. It reminds me a little bit of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 review, where that movie was getting dogpiled on as we, recorded our Now Slang episode. So yeah, I personally wouldn't recommend it, but it's also not terrible. Once again, I feel like this is a common theme. There's a lot of movies I don't really like on Now Slang that we review, but it's also I'm not giving them the absolute worst review, or I'm not saying it's the worst thing ever. But yeah, personally, I wouldn't recommend it unless you're already in the market for a movie like this, and if you're that person already, right? So yeah. But with that, I think basically it's the time we'll just hop into a more general discussion on this movie. Like I said, we are doing spoilers for this just because, I mean, everyone knows what this movie's about and there's not really anything to spoil. So if you do not want to be spoiled for Firestarter in whichever shape that may appear, then yeah, I guess pause the podcast and return to this as you've seen it. But yeah, we're going to open up the floodgates on our spoiler thoughts on Firestarter. Maybe kick it off. Rowan, what were some things you really liked about the movie? Because you were more positive on it. So what were some of the aspects you enjoyed?
Well, if you continue listening on, you decide to spoil it for yourself. Huge spoiler, the girl, she controls water. No, I'm just kidding.
I was I think I already spoiled the pyrokinetic abilities in the summary. So
yeah, the bio pretty much gives it up. So I'm going to make right off the bat, hot take, hot prediction.
Okay.
This might be in my top 3 John Carpenter soundtracks already. I came home, I listened to the entire soundtrack. It's really good. It's really good.
We're on the same page there. I think for me, if this movie didn't have this John Carpenter score, it would be pretty unbearable / pretty just boring. It's already, in my opinion, fairly dull, but the score really elevates it. And it was something I noticed the entire time that I was yeah, this Carpenter score slaps. It's really good. There's little moments in the composition that does remind me of Halloween every now and then.
Oh yeah.
Specifically when Rainbird comes in and he kind of attacks, the mother earlier in the movie. there was a part where he's kind of like strangling her a little bit, and it reminds me of like some of the musical motifs in the Halloween score. So yeah, I the score, in my opinion, is the strongest part of the entire movie. So yes, we're in complete agreement there.
That's really like my strong selling point on this is, like you said, I agree. I think without the soundtrack, I think we're getting, an hour and a half rip off of like, Stranger Things vibes and I don't like to say that because I mean obviously the original film is pre-Stranger Things, so Stranger Things is Firestarter for the new kids. But yeah, like I mean this is really like kind of fitting, I think, for like cinema right now, is it not? It's kind of like Blumhouse's entry into superhero movies.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There was a movie a couple years ago, which I don't know if it's Blumhouse or not, but Brightburn was the name of it.
Oh yes,
yeah, that was very much like superhero horror, and I couldn't not think of Brightburn when I was watching this, which this must be also rated R because they say fuck a fair few times in the movie, and there's a couple of practical effects that I guess are somewhat gory, but I couldn't help but just think about Brightburn because that's like what if Superman was evil and there's this kid just murdering people like mercilessly throughout the movie. So I was like, okay, this is a couple years late, but still on trend. Obviously, superheroes are still very popular. Doctor Strange just came out last week and, is taking the world by storm, the box office at least. So it's very on trend. It was just the type of thing where I felt like the movie couldn't 100% commit if it wanted to be a family drama, if it wanted to be a horror movie, if it wanted to be a superhero movie, or if it wanted to be like a science fiction facility movie. And quite honestly, a lot of Stephen King books are kind of that way anyways. They are like a hodgepodge of a bunch of different things, and then that's why sometimes the endings don't work for people, or sometimes people just don't grasp on to certain themes and certain aspects of his stories because he's always taken a big swing, I find.
I think, from what I remember, like I said, it's been, over 20 years since I've seen the original, but the original is not really a horror either. Like the original is full out, a sci-fi movie kind of thriller, like B movie. And, I think this is an interesting side to show right now because we're definitely in, a new age that Stephen King's getting something adapted like every 6 months right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I do kind of like, exploring his other work that isn't horror necessarily. I think this is kind of a good entry point into that. I was very surprised, you'd mentioned it before, like the Rotten Tomato score and stuff, because I was thinking about when I saw another semi-recent Stephen King remake adaptation of Pet Sematary, which, should be buried and burned by the Firestarter girl. Like, to me, that was a hunk of shit.
Oh, man. We're on different points. I don't think that's great by no means, but I'd give Pet Sematary the edge over this one, I think.
Oh no, my friend, no. I mean, as someone that's a huge fan of the original Pet Sematary, I don't think it, held anything towards it. And this, I thought was pretty admirable. Like we keep saying, I think the soundtrack really elevates it. When I was in the theater, it was kind of funny because when the kind of intro and the credits come in, first of all, I was like, fuck yeah, like the music, we get the 80s, I don't even want to say 80s movie aesthetic. To me, it was very 80s TV movie or direct to video style. And it was funny because all I thought about is I was like, fuck, Colton's gonna hate this. Because I was because you know what it gave me? It gave me Malignant vibes.
Malignant vibes, of course. Yes.
I was like, this is Malignant all over again.
Yeah, for me, the score is much better than in Malignant, and
well, yeah.
I do prefer this over Malignant, which is insane if you just want to go by critical appraisal. But yeah, no, I completely get what you mean. It's starts off pretty hokey for sure with the title treatments of the freeze frames and kind of the splicing with a VHS or a security cam footage and all that. It's pretty cheesy beginning for sure. But once again, that kind of vibe doesn't really carry throughout the movie either. Like, it starts off really cheesy, and then it's just like it's trying to be, I think, somewhat serious between like Zac Efron and his wife. Sydney Lemon is who's the actress, and then obviously Charlie. So it's just like, I don't know. It's something like, I can't really buy Zac Efron as a dad yet. I don't know if you bought into him or not, but
sexiest dad alive.
It's just like, how many dads have an 8-pack? You know, it's like, unless it's like an 8-pack of beer, right? Like, you know, I was just like looking at this dude. He has like multiple like shirtless scenes near the beginning of the movie where he just looks like yoked out of his mind. And I was just like, dude, it's just a weird miscast. Like, it was something that when I was watching it, I was just like, yeah, sure, like Zac Efron, he doesn't have to be like the hunk anymore, or only in these like bro frat movies or whatever. But it's also like, he felt too young to me to be like an actual like serious dad in the movie. I don't know if you felt the same, but it was a little bit jarring.
He was actually, now I really like Zac Efron and most of the stuff he does, so I didn't have an issue with him. I thought he was one of the stronger people in this film. I loved his power. Like, I thought that was cool, like the cracking of the neck. I wasn't a huge fan on the later on in the film when we get like the full bleeding eyes. I think that looked pretty bad, where like I was cool with it, where it was just kind of like the teardrop of blood, like that looked fine. But then when we really went for it, I was like, this doesn't really like hold up as an amazing effect.
Yeah, it was something that, I don't know, it felt like it would read better in a novel, where obviously this is based on a novel. Like the whole like cracking of the neck and stuff, like obviously it's a character choice and whatnot, and it's probably in the novel. It was something that it felt a little bit weird for the movie to me, I guess. Like when I was watching it, like I said, I didn't believe him too much as the character. I did believe the mother, but she's not in the movie very long, as we all know. She's in there for about 10 minutes. I thought she was pretty good as a mother. I don't know, she doesn't really do much. What do you think of the main girl, Ryan Kiera Armstrong as Charlie?
I thought she was pretty good. I mean, I see what they were going for. Like, she's very reminiscent of Child Drew Barrymore. So So, like, I felt, I was like, you know, they definitely wanted you to kind of get that look and feeling. I was kind of interested that I kind of wish maybe they casted someone that, like, didn't look anything remotely like Drew Barrymore and just, like, totally did something else to shake it up. I mean, I thought she was fine. I mean, I always feel like child actors are so hit or miss, especially, like, in these kind of movies, like... I feel like you're always asking a kid a lot to, like, kind of go through the emotions, especially of this film, where, like, the kid's got to have, you know, be, like, crazy angry, crazy depressed. Like, that's a lot, but, like, you know, I thought she was fine. I, like... just kind of middle of the road.
Yeah, the only comparisons really recently, I guess, is like 13 and Stranger Things, as you've already mentioned, where I'd say Millie Bobby Brown probably does that a little bit better. From what I've seen in Stranger Things, I've only seen like most of the first season. And is it X-23 in Logan? Is that the name of the character?
Yeah, X-23, yeah.
Yeah, like I thought that actress was pretty great too, like bringing a ferocity to the role. And, you know, obviously she's very angry and upset for a lot of the movie as well. So I had some like recent touchstones to compare the performance to. I don't necessarily want to say like the girl was a bad actress. I just think there were certain moments where she was definitely like pretty cheesy, and I don't know if it was the performance or just like the visual effects and stuff that go into it, right? Like sometimes when she'd shout and like the fire would burst out of her, like, you know, that was pretty silly. There was some moments where they almost made it look like she was breathing fire. You'd see like the sparks come out of her mouth first, which it's like, once again, it's a choice. It was something that I laughed at the first time it happened, which was not a scene you should have laughed at all. She had like a knife to her throat and just saw her mother's corpse and whatnot, so it was supposed to be not played for laughs at all. I just found it pretty cheesy or pretty hokey.
I kind of had the same feeling. Like I did like a lot of when she used her powers, but when we got to the point where she's like kind of throwing it or using her voice, I was just kind of like I'd rather things just kind of like combust and just like catch on fire and that kind of feeling, rather than it be, you know, more on this like mutant superhero type power.
Yeah, it was like a shock wave with fire at times, which didn't work quite as well to me as like, I don't know, if she was getting angry and like the blinds would start burning like practically, or, you know, stuff would start melting or boiling like that. there were moments in the movie where they were a little bit more subtle with it that I think those moments worked better. Like, I think one of the opening scenes is like a dream about when she's an infant and sets the room on fire or whatever. And I was like, that works better to me than, the force fields and shit. That it just literally does remind me of like X-Men movies or something, right? One thing I wanted to get into, you mentioned you wish they kind of went a different direction with Charlie, like didn't cast an actress that looked similar to Drew Barrymore. I haven't seen the first one, but from what I read, it was a very different direction what they did with Rainbird in the first movie. Is that correct? It was like a Vietnam vet, I think.
Yeah.
And in this one they went a Native American angle, which I thought was
more
pretty
Stephen
interesting.
King.
Yeah, it's on trend for Stephen King, which is the thing is like Stephen King has this long history of always using Native Americans as kind of like a reason for hauntings or a reason for something going wrong or whatnot. So when that came up, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes complete sense for Stephen King. But I'm not sure if maybe in the novel it was Native American. I'm not sure. I know in the film adaptation they did something else different. But I liked him in this movie for the little bit he was in there. I like at the end that there was like reconciliation and that she didn't outright kill him. And, he kind of carries her off. Like I did like the ultimate ending there. And it was just kind of like oh, okay, there's some Native American representation where he's not completely demonized or anything in this movie like some other, Stephen King stories. But it worked for me.
I thought the actor's name, Michael Greyeyes,
Yeah.
I thought he was probably the strongest point of the whole film. Like, he totally gave me that, 80s sci-fi, like, heavy...
Terminator vibes.
Yeah, like, he was awesome, like, just, doesn't say much, yet, like, super powerful. And, like, his presence was just, super magnetic, which I thought was really interesting. Because, I mean, we have, like, this, what I'm pretty sure is safe to say for this generation, like, Zac Efron is, like, a superstar. And I thought, like, whenever they were in scenes together, I was like, Michael Greyeyes is, like, totally stealing the show from Zac Efron and even the girl. Like, he just stole the scene whenever he was in it.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely one of the stronger members of the cast. I mean, basically the whole, like, federal agency or whatever, all of them are hokey and terrible. So he was definitely, he brought a little bit of, like, gravitas to the role. For me, like, Zac Efron's acting the entire movie, he just, once again, I just couldn't see him as a father, and then a lot of what he was doing I just thought was a little bit forced or a little bit strange. So once again, that could just be me. But no, I like Michael Greyeyes, and like I said, I liked the change, whether or not this is accurate to the novel or, if it was their own original idea. I did like that. I mean, that worked for me.
I was going to say, I'll tell you what I like, that I feel like most people are, like, I haven't read a lot of reviews on this or anything. I feel like most people are probably going to, rag on, is Gloria Reuben, Captain Holster.
Oh, God, she was terrible, in my
First
opinion.
of all, Captain Holster, toughest federal agent name of all time.
That is true. I never even thought that. Oh my God.
Super cheesy 80s. Like, I was loving that was the name. I was a fan. Like, I recognize Gloria Reuben from, like, just random stuff. Like,
okay.
She's always in, the, like, I know she was in Time Cop and, like, I don't know. She's in a bunch of stuff. Like Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson and...
Yeah, she has, like, 80 credits here on IMDb. So, yeah, she's an illustrious career that led to Firestarter.
But, like, I thought she was pretty effective because, like, literally the first 2 minutes of her on the screen, I'm like, oh yeah, I fucking hate this woman. Which, I mean, you're supposed to. Like, she's a shitty federal agent. Like, she's kind of the woman behind the curtains type thing. And I thought, like, she was effective. And I feel like she was someone I recognized, but it wasn't someone that, like, I think if you had casted it, someone that was a bigger person, like a bigger actor, would kind of ruin it. Because then I just think it would have became too much of, like, an arch nemesis feeling or like that kind of, I think it would get really silly villain if it was someone bigger.
Yeah, like I think Viola Davis plays a similar role in like the Suicide Squad movies, for example. So if you casted Viola Davis in this, it'd be distracting. Basically like Zac Efron to me as the father character, right? Just distracting.
Yeah,
I couldn't buy
exactly.
into Andy McGee, which is the name of the character's name. Once again, like what a name. But yeah, I mean, I get that. What about the practical effects? I think this movie had loads of, a good amount of practical effects. What do you think of them?
I was pretty pleased. I mean,
Yeah.
I came into this, I mean, we know it's Blumhouse, so we know it's not like a huge budget film. I mean, I didn't look at the budget, but I'm assuming that, this isn't, no one's given them Northman money, so...
Oh, definitely not.
I did think they were pretty effective with it, and, for what I expected, and I think the vibe they went, I was pretty pleased with everything. Like I said, like, some of the fire effects that we didn't like wasn't even necessarily that, like, oh, they look bad or they look good. It's just, I didn't like the use of them in the story.
Yeah.
But I thought, I'm like, for a low budget, like, movie that just kind of is fun into the theater, I had nothing to complain about. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised by the use of, the practical effects in the movie. Like we said, there's a little bit of practical fire in the movie, I think, in the beginning with some of the burning, curtains and burning, rooms and stuff like that, which obviously practical fire, like, it's still fairly hard to replicate just like perfectly.
Yeah.
I find it's one of those things when it's CGI, it's overused all the time in CGI, but fire is just so chaotic and we all know what fire looks like. So it's really hard to replicate it perfectly in a visual effect, I still find. So, for the most part, I thought it worked pretty well. Like we said, I didn't like the shockwave fire stuff, and that's more of like an artistic direction than the actual effect itself.
Yeah.
There was some stuff that stood out. I was like, oh, they're going to show a cat half burned on the ground, still alive,
That was...
As a cat lover, did that hurt you?
It hurt my heart, and a brave move for 2022. I mean,
For sure.
I feel like, unfortunately, I think cats are lower on the totem pole than dogs and children, but interesting choice. To me, if I had to guess, like, oh, they're gonna do this scene, like, I feel like it would have been like a crow or like something just like people are like, yeah, whatever. But I like the choice. Like, I like the choice because I think it added, like, some, like, gravitas to the situation where we're like, okay, like, there's actual stakes here. We're watching an animal that's, like, widely beloved, like, suffer and then eventually, be murdered.
Yeah, I was like, man, are we watching like a Mike Flanagan movie here right now? Midnight Mass with those dozens of cats, just dead on the shores. Yeah, I was like, that's a pretty ballsy move. There's loads of people that won't see a movie like if there's an animal harmed or a practical effect of an animal dying in any way. So, I mean, I know this is like a horror or, sci-fi movie, whatever, but a lot of people would be turned off from that. So I was like, okay, that's pretty ballsy. And there was also a pretty good effect where there's like an agent sitting in the front of a car at one point, and essentially she winds up burning him alive, trying to torture to get some information out of him, trying to get his key card, and I think he turns a gun on her, which is what causes the outburst. But he kind of gets like half melted at one point. I was like, dude, they put a lot of effort into like the makeup for this one guy, in this scene.
I was a big fan of that scene because, yet again, like, I think what was interesting, all of these kills and all that, like, this really could have went wrong. Like, this whole film where, like, the kills didn't matter. And it was just like, how silly, how ridiculous can we, like, make this, kind of how schlocky can we make this? Where, like you said, with the practical effects being so well done, and, like, the scene with the agent where we do get that preamble where we know he has, like, a partner that's pregnant in her first trimester, and, like, we actually put some stakes on the deaths in this movie where... I was, like, pretty impressed that it took itself that seriously in these moments, which, worked for me. I thought they definitely worked for me.
Yeah, the couple of moments I'm pointing out, I don't know if they worked 100% like emotionally for me. Like I don't know if I felt too much with it. But once again, just admiring the visual effects. I did think like the practical effects were good. So I was like, oh man, it wasn't like, that's the thing. Sometimes you watch movies of this caliber where it's like, it's a lower budget. I just searched it up. It's 12 million. So it's not like a small indie movie, but it's still like, most of the time at that budget, you're leaning into just visual effects nonstop. And it would be very easy to just like, have him like burn up in one go. But the fact that, he had to sit through definitely a couple hours of makeup application to get to that point. Like, people did care about certain visual effects and certain practical effects in this movie. So, I do applaud them for that.
Yeah, 'cause like you said, it just could have went wrong. So very wrong. We love it. If you listen to the podcast, we love people that care about practical effects and put the care and want into it. Now, I'm surprised that we've gone this long. We're not going to talk about the real casting, like chef's kiss on this. The ultimate 80s, 90s casting.
Oh no. Who is it?
Kurtwood Smith. He plays
right,
Dr.
Okay.
Joseph Wainless.
Yeah, in his one scene that to me just seemed like really out of place. But yes, he is in this movie.
Icon. I don't think you'd say anything else other than icon. This guy's in like so many iconic 80s movies that I was just like, oh man, I was so pumped.
Yeah, like you clearly recognized them more than me. It was a familiar face to me, but you're a child of the 80s. I'm a child of the 90s. So it wasn't like, I was like, oh yeah, I recognize that guy. But for me, it was like, I wonder, was this, did he have a role in the original Firestarter? It was like how the scene felt to me, which,
he did not. I looked it up because that's kind of what I thought at first, because I'll tell you what I am happy about. Another thing I'm happy about that I was worried about, because like I said, I didn't get a chance to revisit the original before I saw this, and I didn't want to. Till after I saw it. But I kept being like, is this guy from the original? And are we doing, our new favorite word of requel here? I'm like, are we trying to tie it in? Even though this is the beginning of the story, like, are we trying to tie this in to the original? And luckily, he is not. They just knew people were going to be like, God damn, the best villain of RoboCop.
Yeah, for people like you that get excited for that, then yes, that's why that was in there for sure. Like I assume the director was probably a big fan of the 80s as well, or a child of the 80s, so he just had to get that guy in there.
Yeah, and I don't think I've seen anything else the director's done. I know he did a film called The Vigil.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and I've heard of it also. So I may, this piqued my interest enough just to kind of I'll probably check it out, see what something like kind of his own creation is about. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, like I feel I was happy enough with him as a director that I'm like, I feel like he cares about what he's doing. So I'd be interested on like how his own stuff is.
Yeah, for me with the movie, I'm just trying to think of like some negatives. Like I said, I was pretty bored with it. Like an hour into the movie, I checked like the time and I was like, oh man, there's still 35 minutes left of this thing left. Like, I was pretty bored for a lot of it. And it's just the thing, it's like, once again, there's not really much to spoil in this movie. Like I know what's going to happen the entire movie. It's very like, I'm just sitting there, okay, I'm waiting for her to discover her powers. I'm waiting for them to get out of control and, help her defeat the agents. I'm waiting for, it's one of those, like, I was just kind of shrugging. Like there wasn't really any moments of surprise. So for me, like, there wasn't a whole lot to grab onto, and that's the thing. It's like, I don't necessarily want to say the movie's like outright terrible or anything. Like I said, I was very bored. I was kind of like, why out of all options to kind of explore this story did we go with this option? I guess, like, I think a movie of just like the father, the daughter on the run being pursued by Rainbird is interesting enough. I don't know if we need the big old agency ending with all the different people locked up and all that stuff. It's fine. It feels Stephen King to me, but I don't necessarily like it, I guess.
See, I enjoyed the facility style, like with her going through the hall, just killing everybody.
Yeah, because it's just killing, and you're like, yeah, man, it's perfect.
And in the reflection of 2022, like, it gave me the Stranger Things vibes, and I was just like, yeah, this is like super 80s, like we're in like a deep state government facility, and it's like the escape of the facility. I will say one of the things I wish they had done more of was during the intro and kind of the credits or whatever at the beginning, like you said, we kind of get the security camera and like the infrared shots of obviously the patients and her parents being tested on when they're younger. And I really wish we kind of got more of that in the beginning, because I was like, this is actually pretty, like, very rooted in horror. Like, it was cool looking. Like, you can't really tell what's going on. I always call it the House of 1,000 Corpses effect, because everything's just like white and black, and but like you can tell like people are bleeding out of their heads, and they're like seizuring, and they're dying, and I was just like, man, I'd like to be a fly in a wall in this facility for a little bit.
What you wanted was a scene where all the doctors are rushing towards this one surgical room, and there's some sort of person in there, and they're screaming, and it's affecting the electricity, and then the camera pans around, and there's a little head on the back of their head. That's what you were looking for.
I was waiting for someone to just say, we need to cut the cancer out.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for it.
I was going to say, is there anything else you want to discuss before we get into the ratings, or anything?
No, I think we can go the rating. I think we talked about it long enough.
Yeah, so if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. I don't think we even really spoiled much about this movie, or we kind of just discussed the technical aspects. But Rowan, what would you give Firestarter?
This might be the hardest decision of my life. So we all know I'm emotional. So when I came out, I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then I was like, it's a good thing I'm not recording tomorrow. I can calm down. So I was really stuck between like a strong okay and like a yay. I think I'm gonna give it a yay. I think it's going to be a yay. It probably would be an okay if the soundtrack wasn't that fucking good. But because the soundtrack is that good, I'll be buying this. I will watch this many times just for the soundtrack. Because I think the soundtrack with the visuals, it just works. That works about it. So yeah, I think, like I said, I think you could do a lot worse. I think it's worth checking out. It's definitely, to me, like when I had very low expectations going in, and I came out being like, you know what? This was like a pretty fun popcorn flick for me to spend an hour and a half in the theater, like, just to have fun. Not, I didn't want to think overly. Like, it was just fun. I got what I came for. I think I got my money's worth. What would you rate it, Colton?
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn as well, because, we didn't get into too many negatives about the movie, but it's just literally like storytelling decisions and like pacing and stuff like that for me. So it was just like I said, it was a bit of a slog, and it's only an hour and a half. I think I probably lean on a very, very strong nay, which is silly to say, but like it's like right on the edge of like an okay and a nay for me. I think if I did see it in theaters, like yourself, it probably would be a very weak okay, because it's just like once you're in a theater, I'm not checking my phone. I'm not checking if there's a half hour left. I'm sat there and I have to take it all in, whether I like it or not. So for me, it was like the score is great. I did appreciate the practical effects. I liked having that Native American character, and like the ultimate ending with him and Charlie, I did like. But overall, I give it a very, very weak nay, or a strong nay, sorry. I don't think it's something I'd really return to, but I do agree. I think like I'm looking forward to people like using the score in video essays, or even like maybe I'll check it out for myself and give it a listen while I'm doing some writing or something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's not the worst thing ever. It doesn't deserve a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. I feel like that's Suicide Squad 1 level, and that movie is atrocious in my opinion. So yeah, it's not that bad. For me, it was just a little bit dull, I guess.
Yeah, that's. I think that's understandable.
But yeah, I guess all that's kind of left for this episode is if you'd like to follow us, you can do so on our social medias at It Slays Podcast. You know, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Slasher. Basically, wherever there's a chance for us to have an account, Letterboxd, we're at It Slays Podcast. And I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
Or actually, no.
Oh, wait.
You gotta plug the Spotify playlist. I forgot. We almost got out here. Yeah, go ahead and plug that.
And we have to, because you know I'm gonna add at least like one or two from this one. So
for sure, yeah.
If you're on Spotify, you can go to the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist, where we have scores and music from movies we love, or especially movies we review. And this will be there. It'll be added. Follow the playlist. We update it every once in a while, and there's lots of stuff there. I bang it in the car all the time. So why not drive around with the windows down? It's nice. It's summer. And just play some John Carpenter Firestarter music, so people just look at you and wonder what's wrong with your life.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to freak out all your neighbors. But yeah, I don't know. We're still learning on how to wrap up the show. It's like I always don't know how to jump to the ultimate ending. I guess, probably the next thing we'll be covering is probably Men. I think that comes out next week in theaters. Alex Garland.
Yeah.
We got that on this, the schedules, the calendar. So we'll probably be covering that. I think we're also reviewing The Neon Demon on the main show next week.
Yeah.
So we might have a couple of things coming your way. So, keep your eyes on the podcast feed. And yeah, until then, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And we'll see you all later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store. Back where it says horror videos and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
From the prime time, bitch!
On with the new Fletch. The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.